Okay, so being 6:30 on August 3rd, Wednesday, August 3rd, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. and having quorum, I'll call the Bridgewater Planning Board to order. I'll read the quick. I still have to read the Bridgewater Planning Board notice, pursuant to the town manager's instructions, imposing strict limitations on people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Bridgewater Planning Board will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. No in-person attendance of the members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time. The meeting is being recorded, and in the next 48 hours, we'll post a link to the town on the town's website and our social media pages. The following members are participating remotely: Patrick Driscoll, the chair; Mr. Raymond DeGemian. I don't believe has Ms. Astrid Rojas joined us this evening. She's not here this evening, correct?
I do not see her. No.
Mr. Michael McDonald, the vice chair; Mr. Stephen Geller. I'd also like to welcome MJ Spagone, a new associate member. I don't believe Mr. Haley is here with us yet, is he, Shane?
If he is, he's not under his name, so no. I also don't know if he was. Oh, you are here?
Yeah, Ted's here.
Hey.
Mr. Haley. Hey, everyone. I'm on my iPhone. My office computer is under repair, actually, on an emergency basis right now. So.
And Astrid is here as well. She just got into the waiting room.
Okay, great. So, welcome to Ted and MJ. And the following Bridgewater town staff will be participating remotely. Mr. Shane O'Brien, the town planner. I'm taking all these old names here. I still have Elijah and Mr. Greg Tansey, the town engineer. At this time, everyone's mic is muted. The board's mics will be unmuted through the whole meeting. As items appear on the agenda, the project's representative mics will be unmuted. If the project is a public hearing and allows for public comment, we ask that you use the chat feature to ask a question by listing your name and address in your question. The host, who's Mr. Shane O'Brien, will recognize the questions in order. You can also use the raise my hand feature in the participant menu, and you'll be unmuted when the chair recognizes you. Again, please state your name and address before asking a question. If you're on the phone, you can dial *9 to raise your hand. Can you guys hear the kids in the back? Are they driving? Are they loud? No?
They're fine.
I apologize. Okay, so the first item we have on the agenda this evening is a public hearing at 210 Broad Street. This is being proposed by 210 Broad Street Realty LLC. It's a site plan and a special permit. Mr. O'Brien did provide us in our packet with the public hearing notice. I'll read it quickly. It says on Wednesday, August 3rd, 2020 at 6:30 p.m. the Bridgewater Planning Board will be conducting a public meeting via Zoom on an application by 210 Broad Street Realty LLC for a site plan under section 9.8 site approval and a special permit under 10.3 off-street parking and loading requirements of the Bridgewater zoning bylaw on the property located 210 Broad Street, map 21, lot 146. The project is proposing to change the use of the building and remove portions of the impervious area and to add landscaping along with allowed parking space to be located off-site with the waivers requested. The plans were prepared by Strong Point Engineering and Kilm Land Surveying, West Bridgewater, Mass, and dated May 27, 2022, and on file at Community Economic Development Office and online at bridgewaterma.org. And all interested persons are encouraged to attend the Bridgewater Planning Board. This was published on 7/20 and 7/27/22.
Mr. Chair, we did receive green cards for this project as well, just to let the board know.
And I believe the board did get a chance to see the project summary and memo provided by Mr. Shane O'Brien and by Mr. Greg Tansey, the town engineer. So at this point, I will turn it over to the applicant for their presentation, if nobody has any questions or concerns.
Great. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, my name is Eric Dias. I'm a registered professional engineer with Strong Point Engineering Solutions with offices in West Bridgewater. I'm also a resident of Bridgewater at 400 North Street. With me off camera is Stephanie Holman, one of our engineers in our office who worked on this project with me. So if you see me talk off camera, I'm not talking to myself, I promise. And also tonight in the audience with us is Mr. Janesh Patel, who is the representative for the applicant. He is also a local business owner in the town of Bridgewater. He owns the Go gas station at the corner of Spring Street. We're before you tonight for 210 Broad Street. I know that there's been a lot of chatter about this on the residents page. People have been wondering for months what's going on here. The site is admittedly an eyesore in the shape it's in now. Very straightforward project. We're going to take the site that's an eyesore. We're going to rehab this building. We're going to add a whole bunch of landscaping in some pervious areas to the site, and we're going to kind of rehab it and bring it into something that the town can be proud of. At the same time, we're going to bring a couple more businesses to downtown Bridgewater. So I think it's a net positive in concept, but that doesn't mean that we don't have to discuss the finer points and the details of it. So that's why we're here tonight. I'm going to share my screen if that is okay and walk through the plans. It does say host is disabled participant screen sharing.
How about now?
Let me try it. I got you. Everything just froze. Okay, can everybody see the plans?
Yes.
Fantastic. Okay, so I'm going to scroll through these plans very quickly. This is our existing conditions plan for the site. As you know, we're all familiar with this. This is the Napa Auto Parts building that's right across the street from the Roach Brothers Plaza. We see it every time we try to pull out of Roach Brothers. It's had a for sale sign on the windows for quite some time now. You can see from this, we've got a building that's about 5,200 square feet. We have pavement just about all the way out to the street. There's no landscaping in front of the building now. We share an access drive with our abutter to the rear of us. We have on-site drainage facilities, and we have an on-site septic system. This site is not connected to the municipal sewer system, and at this time, we're not proposing to. Because we have a very low flow situation going on in this building, and we don't feel that we necessarily warrant connection to the system at this time. This is a pre-existing non-conforming site, and this site obviously predates the current zoning, so we have a non-conformity with regard to a rear yard setback that we're not looking to increase in any way, shape, or form. We are over the threshold on site now for what's required for lot coverage. We are actually improving that. Your bylaw allows 80% lot coverage. Right now we're at about 88. We're going to get down to about 82%. And we are increasing green space. So I'm going to skip over the next sheet because it's just a demo plan and not really germane to the conversation. But this is what we're proposing. With regard to the building, obviously, we're going to re-facade the entire building, and I can get into some architectural plans on that. But right now, where we have this parking lot, there's no landscaping anywhere to be found. We're going to come through, we're going to make some landscape areas in this parking lot. We're going to patch, we're going to seal coat the parking lot. We're going to restripe the whole thing, put in some proper parking stalls. We're going to be ADA compliant. We're going to install handicap spaces, and we're going to reconfigure the ramp in the front of the building to be completely ADA compliant, where it is not that way today. We are adding some landscaping, some shrubbery in this area here, and this area down here. And we're going to take the existing sign that's there, and we're going to remove the existing sign and put in something that's a little bit more modern, but still conforms to the town of Bridgewater's zoning bylaws. Now, we don't have a tenant in place yet, so we don't know exactly what that sign is going to look like, but we do have some mock-ups that we can go through for illustrative purposes. All of that said, and this all being well and good, as I mentioned, this is a non-conforming site, so we are seeking some relief, one in the form of a waiver and one in the form of a special permit. The waiver that we're seeking is that your bylaw requires that in this district, all parking be either on the side or behind the building. Obviously, that's not what's here in the existing conditions, so we are asking for a waiver to allow parking in the front of the building, between the building and the street frontage. The special permit that we're asking for is under section 10.30 of your bylaw. Under the zoning requirements in the existing condition, when you do the calculation, this site requires 16 parking spaces. It doesn't have 16 parking spaces even now, so it doesn't conform to your bylaw. Once we come through and we strike parking spaces, the best we're able to get on site is 12. That's just all we have room for, but we do have a loading area here where my cursor is. Your bylaw under section 10.3 does allow a special permit to allow off-site parking, as long as it is within 500 feet of the desired, of the subject use. And if I come here, the site at 210 is right here. The Go gas station that we discussed is on the corner of Spring, and as you can see, it's within 460 feet. As luck would have it, there is an excess of 3 parking spaces at the Go gas station. So we are proposing to use those 3 stalls to count toward the total that we're required. So we'll have 12 on site plus 3 at the Go gas station. That gives us the 15 that we need. We're not proposing to use the stalls at the Go gas station for customer parking. It would be for employee parking. So what that would do would limit the amount of foot traffic that's going back and forth between 2 sites at any given time during the day. Instead of having customers going there and back and forth all day long, we'd have an employee go there when the shift starts and come back when the shift ends. So that's what we're looking for the special permit. I will get into some architecture very quickly, just to give an idea of what this building is going to look like and what might be housed in here. So this is a floor plan of the building. This area here is earmarked as a personal training studio. This would be for like a one-on-one type of use. It would not be a gym where people are coming and going. You would make an appointment, you would go with your trainer, you would get a workout, and you'd get out of town. 2 retail spaces, one here on this side, one on this side with a storage room in the back. We have this earmarked for something like a print shop. I know people are very curious as to what's going in here. I can say that we are in some pretty strong talks with the UPS store, not written in stone yet, but that's a very possible candidate. With a shared entrance in the front, they would come to a vestibule and then go between the 2. As far as architecture is concerned, this takes a little bit of a minute to come up, but we would be re-facading the entire building, revitalizing this thing, giving it some curb appeal, making it look good from the street. As this is processing, you'll see this is a replaced wood facade in the front, and we would redo the metal facade on the larger part of the building in the back, while putting all new glass windows and doors in as need be, and a new garage door here. So we give this thing some curb appeal. Coming back to the site plans, let me say that we also have included a lighting plan. We're proposing 2 wall-mounted lighting packs in the front of the building. They're dark sky compliant, LED, high efficiency, no cast over, so we're not lighting up Broad Street, we're not lighting up our neighbors, but we're providing adequate lighting for the site itself. And we have a very, very simple landscaping plan that we've included in this too. We did landscape some shrubbery in the areas that we talked about. We did not landscape in the front. Frankly, we need somewhere to push snow, and we do have utilities coming through the front. We didn't want to be digging holes and hitting underground utilities and things like that. The other things I can tell you is that we have gone through a review process with your town engineer. I think we've addressed most of his comments, but I'll certainly let him speak to those. A few outstanding things that I think are very detail oriented and likely things that we can condition if need be. But I think we're in pretty good shape on this. So to summarize, again, very simple project. We're taking something that's ugly. We're going to make it much, much better. And we do need a waiver request for parking in the front. And we need a special permit to allow some off-site parking for employee usage. And that's it, Mr. Chairman. I'll turn it over to you and go at your direction.
Great, thank you. It's Mr. Diaz, you said, correct? Am I saying that correctly?
Dias, yes, sir.
Dias, I'm sorry.
No problem.
So, Mr. O'Brien, do you or Mr. Tanzi have anything to add before we open up to board questions?
Well, I did send over the our staff report over to the applicant as well as the board. I know last time I kind of went word for word for different aspects of it. But let me just pull that up quickly, just to summarize some aspects of it that we've noticed. Then I'll let Greg provide comments. As you are aware that he's received, has given the board a initial review as well as a comments to the comments provided by Mr. Diaz. But let me get my comments out. So one of the things that we did ask as part of our comments was that the applicant provide some sort of landscaping schedule and some information about planting types, and that was provided to us as part of it, as well as information about making sure that everything's ADA accessible. As Mr. Diaz explained, the intent is everything to be ADA accessible. Mentioning snow storage, I just mentioned that with all projects, I know it's hot and we haven't seen any precipitation, but just information about snow storage I think is important, and that if there's any issues in terms of storage of snow on site, is that the board stipulates something that snow be trucked off site to an off-site location. We did receive information about a 60-month lease between the applicant and I guess himself to utilize the 3 parking spaces at the Go gas station. So we do have that lease information. So I'll kind of let the board ask some questions in regards to that, and I can provide a response in terms of if that is sufficient, or if the board wants an affidavit or a discussion of a parking easement. I know it's difficult to give an easement to yourself based on circumstances, but I guess the board can ask for some security in terms of that parking agreement. But being that the board, through their special permitting process, I'd like to see some safer pedestrian accommodations on Broad Street if the indication is that employee parking be off-site. Luckily, Broad Street has sidewalks on both sides, allowing for nice safe access without having to walk into the roadway. But there is that concern about crossing. There is the I wouldn't say illuminated, but that neon yellow pedestrian indication area. But we would request that as part of this project, the applicant look to restripe the crosswalk at their expense, and just to coordinate with the town on when they would be doing so, as to just kind of provide a safer option to travel for any pedestrians crossing the site. I think that's pretty much my for now. I provided some information about I do apologize. I did state in my staff report that the site was supplied by sewer. It is obviously supplied by septic. However, I don't believe there is a change in number of bathrooms on the site. But I did provide information within my staff report. If the board has any questions in regards to the items of site plan review design objectives, I think the applicant has done a sufficient job from a site plan perspective. I guess it's just a question of the board's feeling on all aspects of the special permit in terms of the off-site parking, as Mr. Diaz has provided, is within that 500 feet. But the board, through all its special permitting powers, can determine the adequacy and the determination of the adequacy of that parking arrangement. But I will kick it over to Greg.
Okay, just a few remaining comments. It appears that the entire front walkway is going to be replaced. The last comment letter said that a portion of it was going to be replaced, but it looks like the entire thing is going to be replaced. I'd just like clarifications on that, and that also that spot grades along the sidewalk along the front of the building be provided that would allow for a cross-sectional slope of 1.5%. That's in line with the ADA compliance. I just don't want standing water on that sidewalk. I want it to shed off of it so we don't have puddles, standing water, or icing conditions from occurring. The other issue is technically on that sidewalk, we have a ramp. It's over 5% grade, and by ADA definition, that constitutes a ramp. Ramps under ADA require a handrail. I don't know if that slope can be flattened. It depends upon where that front door is. And I asked that the front door be located on the detail, that 1 inch equals 5 detail, scaled detail, just to see if we can flatten that 6% slope down to 5% and be in compliant without the need of a handrail. A handrail isn't the end of the world. It's just, I think it'd be a lot more aesthetic without it and easier. I would recommend that the legal counsel take a look at some of the documentation for the lease agreement on the Go gas station, just to ensure that it is a legally binding document. And the last concern that I have, well, is the other concern is the access on the property. There's a narrow two-way access. Originally, I believe that the portion of the access driveway pavement on the abutting lot was most likely used to access this facility in the past, but this access to the site is narrowed a bit. They did have 24 feet of access there before this proposal came about, although the existing sign pretty much prevented free access to it. But the applicant has stated that he's got rights to use the pavement on the abutting property. And he said that documentation is forthcoming. I just want the board to be aware of that and perhaps condition that. Last thing is that they're utilizing an on-site septic system. This septic system, it's an old system. And, it doesn't have the modern 1,500 gallon septic tank. It looks like it's a 1,000-gallon tank. And then it goes into what appears to be some form of a leaching pit. It might even be a old beehive leaching pit. I would have the Board of Health take a look at it. They probably will have to have it a Title V inspection done. If it's a concrete block, cesspool type of leaching pit, we would want to make sure that it's structurally sound. These old septic systems, they only have, so much, life in them. So I would recommend that a Title V inspection be done, or that a conversation with the Board of Health take place and let Eric Badger comment on this septic system. I just want to make sure everything is structurally sound and that it's not in failure by Title V definition. So, and so that, you know, the board, if it chooses to do so, could do this through conditioning if they desire. So that's everything.
Yeah, I just, sorry, I have to follow up on one more comment too. And it just, I wanted to make sure that there was some sort of stop line as well for the in and out of the property, whether it be on the whatever rights there are, or based on this image, the stop line being on the applicant's site, if for some reason they do not have the proper information or title work to use that access, because there may be something going on with that site in the near future.
Okay. So I'll open it up to board questions for the applicant or town staff at this point. Does any?
Okay, I was muted. I have a couple.
Go ahead, Mr. Jimmy.
Okay, not in order. Is this going to, first of all, is the lighting going to be dark skies compliant?
Through the chair, yes, it is. It is all downward facing. In fact, if you look, I'll blow it up.
No, all you have to do is tell me whether it's compliant with dark skies. That's all.
It is, yes.
Okay, thank you. Who's going to review the plantings? You said you're going to give a planting schematic, but who's going to review them? We have in the process of a board that may be able to at some point, but we're not at this time. But how are we going to know the plantings are going to be proper for that particular site?
So we did give a planting plan as part of the revised set. I would assume whoever reviews plans on behalf of the town would be the one to review that, whether it be staff or a third-party reviewer. We selected plans that we think are appropriate, but certainly if the board wants another opinion on that, they're entitled to it.
Okay. Just, I'm curious, you mentioned you're going to replace the large door on the side. What is the purpose of it in terms of the new spaces?
Just to leave it open for loading, so there's a bay door available to the facility for loading. That's all.
Okay. Did we decide where you're going to put snow storage? Has that been determined?
Snow storage is very tough. The best that we can do on this site is around the landscape areas that we're creating. And then we did provide notation on the plan to remove snow from the site when those are at capacity. And
Right.
I believe your staff recommended a condition to that nature too.
And Mr. Tanzi, you've agreed with that? setup?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, lastly, yeah, I'm a little concerned about the parking. Depending on what the types of operations come into the building, you may not need very much parking, or you may need a lot of parking. You said you have specified spots at the gas station for 3 spaces or 4 spaces?
Great, yes.
Well, I guess my concern is the people crossing the street, and Mr. O'Brien's point about restriping, I think it's the least that should be done. I suspect what will happen if the parking lot fills up with the number of places, people will simply walk across and park in the Roach Brothers lot. I expect that's going to happen. And I guess that's my little bit concern, depending on, again, what businesses go in there. Those are my points, my questions. Thank you.
If I may, just to follow up on the gentleman's last comment, as a practical matter, I agree with you. I think people's tendency will be to park at the Roach Brothers Plaza and just run across the street, which is not a great idea. So we can certainly provide some signage that says, designated parking at 155 Broad, which is the GO gas station, whatever we need to do to demarcate that, to prohibit that from happening, we can agree to.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other board questions or comments at this point?
Yeah, I mean, so just touching on the two, relief requests sought, the parking in front, the waiver for that, I have no issue with. That's just how the site is. I don't see a problem there. I am concerned about the offsite parking. I think I would need to see something a lot more solid than a 60-month lease. I mean, these are two totally different properties. One could be sold to somebody else at any time. I'd need something much more long-standing than a 60-month lease to guarantee those parking spaces.
Okay, we can certainly take a look at that.
You all set?
Otherwise, no issues. I think it's a good project.
Any other board comments or questions at this point?
Yeah, I got a couple questions. So the curving around the planting areas, what is that gonna be? Or did I not see it on the drawings?
We are not proposing curving around the planting areas at this time. There's no curving there now. We were trying to maintain drainage patterns, so we're not proposing curving that would cut that off.
So so they're not on your plans, but the parking spaces going out to Broad Street, how are you gonna stop a car from going over the parking lot and into Broad Street?
Well, that's a good point. At this point, we have curb stops on this side to stop them from driving into the building. We can
Yep.
certainly put curb stops or even bollards for that matter on this side. One reason we wanted to not do that was because we have such limited snow storage area. We wanted to be able to push snow in there. But I'm sure.
And I completely get that, but I can tell you right now, just from going by there, when they put the curb stops there, they would get pushed into Broad Street during the snow. So that's one concern.
Yeah, we don't want that. So maybe it's appropriate then to put curbing along this line at least to stop that from happening.
I think it is appropriate to put curbing there because when you plow, your plow can lift the blade and put it on top. And that's not very wide. That's going to get full. My other concern is that actually being your snow storage area, that when a car is trying to pull out, that snow mounds are going to block vision of 18. And we all know that they're really going to push all the snow towards the Kentucky Fried Chicken parking lot, and they're going to bury that landscaping area. So I hope that they would maintain the landscaping area after every winter season. So that's one concern that I would ask. I also really want to know what your building sign is going to be when you're replacing the Napa sign, and I'll let you know what my concern is. My concern is if you go and you're going to try and put a monument sign, my fear is that you're going to block sight of oncoming traffic down 18.
So what I can tell you, and I will share this as well, let me pull it up real quick. This is a rendering, if it's coming up, if you can see this photo, of the monument sign that they're proposing. Now, obviously, whatever would be in here is subject to the tenants. We're not proposing signage on the building at this point, though that may very well come. If we do have somebody like a UPS store, they're going to want a marquee sign on the building, so we would have to permit that as appropriate on the separate cover. But you can see here that this is set back a bit from the roadway. In fact, I can zoom in. We would make sure that wherever this is ultimately located is set back enough so that from the stop line, you can see past it and it doesn't impede line of sight.
Yeah, that's what I meant. I just use it as a monument sign is actually on the ground, and you're elevating that. So
This is a pencil sign, correct, yes.
So the only other concern that I may have, and I think your architect will take a look at it, is your building that's designed the way it is, your floor plan.
Mhm.
I just want to make sure that your egresses are all proper, leaving each space. Typically there's two means. Typically you don't go through one room to another room. So I don't know if you're going to have to add any exterior doors.
That's something, admittedly, I'm not an architect, but I will make note of that. We will bring it up and make sure that that gets addressed.
And is there any, I saw you putting lights on the front of the building. Are you proposing any lights to go over near the loading dock?
We are not, because we don't anticipate using that at nighttime, really. And we didn't want to be casting light off to the abutter, and we're so close in that location, we thought it better to just stay away from that.
Okay. I would almost think for safety purposes, if you might want to consider putting one on, maybe not as much wattage, but at least to light it up.
We can take a look at it, certainly.
I agree with Steve on that one. There should be something there, even if it's not major.
Because I think your spillage is actually going to go onto the shared road, not so much onto the Midas property. I think I think it'd be fine with that. But I asked you to look at that and light that up.
Sure, we will certainly take a look at that.
I have nothing else at this time. Thank you.
Any other board questions at this point?
I'm sorry, I just missed the point where we were talking about what they were going to do for pedestrian walkways. Since they're going to have the other parking lot, what is being done again?
So Mr. O'Brien suggested that at the very least, we restripe an existing crosswalk, I believe. Is that correct, Shane?
Yes, at your expense, not ours.
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually am in communication with my client, the applicant, on this, who agrees to that. So we can certainly get that done.
So that's the crosswalk that's right on the corner at the gas station, correct?
Yeah.
Because if you walk in front of the post office by Dunkin' Donuts, there is no sidewalk there.
No, it's dangerous.
The crosswalk in front of the gas station at the signal light, stoplight.
Oh, I apologize, Steve. I was talking about the, I didn't realize there was that gap. I was talking about the mid cross at Broad between,
So I was going to suggest that they paint that also, but if you look on that right there, there is no sidewalk at Dunkin' Donuts where all the cars line up in the morning to get their coffee. So
Yeah,
for pedestrians to safely cross, they would have to cross at that crosswalk there and then walk that crosswalk.
So if I'm understanding correctly, we'd have to cross up at the go and then come down this side.
That's correct.
Yes.
Because there's no sidewalk in front of the post office or Dunkin' Donuts.
Yeah, I think you are correct. Just to throw this out there, and I would be remiss if I didn't say it, your bylaw does allow for a parking waiver by special permit as well. So if parking at the Go gas station was something that people weren't necessarily inclined to, your bylaw does say that you could allow a reduction in parking by special permit. And where we have such a light use that we're anticipating for this site, it's very possible that, the 12 parking stalls that we have might be enough.
Well, so one issue I have with that is if you do put a UPS store in there, you're going to have multiple cars going in and out all the time. And if you have two different retailers plus a gym, so there's at least 3 people. So there's 3 of your parking spaces if they're parking on site that you're going to lose. So that leaves 9, right? There's 12 on site.
Yes.
So I'm not sure that I'm actually in favor of wavering of doing the waiver. But I think you need to make it crystal clear that to cross the street, they need to cross at the Go gas station.
We can certainly do that. We can provide wayfinding signage as appropriate, however we need to make sure that happens.
And if that is going to be employees only for the things, I'm sure between your leases and everything else, you would stipulate on how they're going to get there.
Sure.
Notice in that picture all the car stops, which is what I was getting at.
Yeah, you're right. If you zoom in down here, one there, one right here.
I've walked down there and seen them in the street.
Maybe I should have kept that picture off the screen, huh?
Next board question, anybody else? I got just a couple follow-up questions and comments. So I agree with what's been said in regards to the parking at the GO gas station. A lease between yourself isn't sufficient in my mind. I think we'd need either a deed restriction and or an easement that can be filed with the registry of deeds that runs with that property, so that if the applicant does sell that property, the rights to those spots remain. I also think that on that GO gas station site, there should be signage saying this parking is for employees of XYZ business only on those 3 spots. I'd also agree that the crosswalk needs to be striped. Is there a trash dumpster shown on the site that's fenced, or is that not shown?
That is not shown, I believe.
I think we probably want to make sure that we have adequate, trash disposal facilities on site. If you can coordinate that somewhere on the site.
We can do that, absolutely.
The next question I have is we don't know what the use is going to be, but you did mention a print facility, potentially a UPS store or something of that nature, and it just seems like an old cesspool septic system probably really isn't sufficient. So I think at a minimum we need to do a Title V, but I don't even know if this is in our purview, but I think it probably should be connected to the municipal sewer system while you're doing all this work. I think that makes sense for, environmentally and everything else. I think it just makes sense to connect it instead of, trying to rehab what's there for a system. If some other business goes in there, you might have to add an oil grit separator, you might have to add, a grease trap, etc. So I'd just like to see that's upgraded. Are there any colors proposed for the building? Do you know?
At this point, I don't think we've zeroed in on colors yet, unless the applicant knows something that I don't. But I don't believe so.
No, we have not finalized colors, but we're open to suggestions if you have any.
Yeah, I mean, just in that area, I mean, I don't know if this is even within our purview or not, but we asked the recent approvals down there just to stay with like the Benjamin Moore historic palette or something like that. Just so, I mean, you can pick your colors, but just so we don't have bright oranges and bright greens and things like that down there. So, I had one other question that's slipping in my mind right now. Well, what is the Mr. Tanzi mentioned, and I just can't scale it off on my computer. What is the entrance width? You said it was 24 feet before the landscaping. What is it now?
I believe I don't have it off the top of my head, but I do believe the existing, if you go off our property, the entire width of that curb cut is still 24. I think it's just less than 24 on our property itself.
Okay. And I know section 10.3 item A references that off-street parking can be within 500 feet by special permit. I'm not aware though of any parking waivers being allowed. Where did you see? Am I missing that in the zoning somewhere?
I thought I read, let me pull up my parking analysis. Hold on just a quick second.
I don't believe we have the ability to waive parking unless it's a mixed use building.
Section 10.10 of the local zoning bylaw allows for parking requirements within the central business district to be reduced by issuance of special permit from the planning board. 10.10 that I believe gives the board authority to, if they choose to.
10.10, I read it.
Unless I read that wrong, in which case forget I said anything.
I'm reading it the same.
No, I missed that. So thanks for educating me on that.
I don't know if that would be much good, but I'm glad to do it.
All right, those are my questions. Thank you, Mr. Diaz. Diaz, I'm sorry.
No worries.
Mr. Chair, I have one more question because I heard a couple different things and I just want to verify. So I heard that the parking lot during the presentation was going to be patched, and then later on I heard that it was going to be surfaced. Can you clarify what's going to happen?
The current plan is to patch and seal coat the parking lot. Patch, there's a small pothole in the middle of it. It's not terribly bad, so we would patch that, we would seal coat the whole thing and restripe the remainder of the parking lot.
And if your leaching field or leaching pit does not conform and everything needs to be replaced, would you consider repaving the entire parking lot?
That might change the game plan on us, depending on what we have to do, because we would obviously have to pull some stuff out and run a new trench. So in that case, it might warrant us to at least retop. I don't know that we necessarily strip it down to bare ground unless we found a structural reason to do so, but we might have to look at retopping it at that point.
Okay.
One thing I will say, and we are going to look into this and we are going to address this with the Board of Health, but there is a Title V report, and this system did pass that Title V inspection shortly before my client bought the property or upon purchase of the property. So we do have a clean Title V inspection, but certainly we'll take this up with the Board of Health and get them to weigh in on it and go from there.
All right, if the board doesn't have anything else, I'd like to open it up for public comment. If we have any members of the public that would like to speak.
All right, if you would like to speak, please raise your virtual hand or let me know that you would like to speak in the chat, and then I will unmute you and allow you to speak. I'll give all you shy people a second. It's all right, you can shut your video off. At this time, I do not see anyone with their virtual hands raised, nor do I see anyone in the chat asking to speak.
I mean, while we're waiting for that, the chair, he did raise an interesting question of, hooking it into town sewer. Is that something you guys would consider, or is that something you're not amenable to? I frankly, I agree with the chair on that. I think, especially without knowing what the use is going to be at this point, that would be a wise precaution to take.
Well, it's a conversation that we've had internally on our side of things. Obviously, a couple of things play into that. One, of course, is cost, right? What is it worth to do it? The other thing is the timeline. This is a mass highway layout. So if we're going to cut into the town sewer, it's located within the DOT layout. We have to file with DOT, and we know that that is a many month-long process. So perhaps when it comes to timing, we can take a hard look at the timing, and maybe there's something that we can do where we open on the system that we have and maybe condition a connection at a future point. I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud. But it is a conversation that we've had internally. We're not necessarily opposed to it, but there are a few factors that we need to consider.
Okay, so it's not off the table, but
Sorry, we could even say like a 12-month timeline or something like that. So
Yeah, I would probably say that question really comes down to, I guess, Board of Health. I did send this plan around to other departments. I did not hear back from Board of Health. But I guess if the Board of Health feels that or this project has passed a Title V, or the adequacy of the septic passes, I would say it'd be difficult for the board to essentially state that the utility, as long as the system works and there hasn't been a major increase in usage on the site. I know that we're looking at 2 retail places, but essentially the utilization of the same amount of bathrooms that were previously there. As long as that is currently adequate for the spaces that are currently there, or if this was a different, I would say if it was a different project, I would say that we would be looking at an increase in usage. But being that we're currently using the same building and the utilities on site seem to currently work, I think that the current utilities should suffice based on approval and adequacy based on the Board of Health and DPW.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Okay, so where do we want to go from here? Do we want to see an updated site plan with the curbing and with the dumpster location and things of that nature? Do we want to try to wrap this up tonight? What are your thoughts, Mr. Diaz and Mr. O'Brien?
Well, personally, obviously, on our end, we'd love to wrap it up tonight, right? We'd love to, but if the board is not comfortable, we understand that there's a few things outstanding. So we'll defer to the board. If you'd like us to come back to the next meeting or the meeting after that, we can do that.
Just to make sure we put some thought into whether we waive the parking or whether we allow for the parking within 500 feet off site with an easement or something like that. And that we can have the site issues addressed, a lot of them brought up by Mr. Geller. Does it hurt your timeline at all if we go to the 17th? Or?
Janesh, are we okay to come back on the 17th?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, yep.
And then maybe in that time frame, you can rework the curbing, the dumpster location, add the lighting that we discussed, provide us with some potential colors, things of that nature, and then we can just have a thoughtful decision that are, crafted based on the discussion this evening.
Okay,
Absolutely.
I'd say I'm not completely opposed to waiving or reducing the parking requirement, but I'd be a lot more comfortable if we knew what the uses were, and we currently don't. So I'd rather see something more concrete with the off-site parking. That'd be my commentary on that.
Well, and maybe staff can weigh whether we use 10.3 or 10.10. What's better for the project and what's better for pedestrian access and stuff. Are we better off to waive it and not use the GO gas station? Or are we better off to utilize the GO gas station with an easement and have pedestrian access upgraded, So I just think if we can think some of these things through, it might help everybody,
Yeah, absolutely. 12 parking spots could be plenty enough for that location. Unfortunately, we just don't know what's quite going in there, so that kind of complicates it a little bit, but I'm not completely opposed to that, for sure.
It was a retail place before with the same amount of parking, so.
Yeah, and just to piggyback off your comment, Pat, as well, I wouldn't say maybe necessarily color type because we don't know who the branding is going to be, but maybe material type, I think would be,
And then, just like a palette of colors or something.
Sure.
Cool. All right, well, that all sounds very reasonable to us. We will work on our end. Get back to you.
So just so there's not any confusion, are we pretty clear on what we need to have accomplished before the next meeting? So from both a town standpoint, what we're looking at updated on the site plan.
Yeah, I'm sure Eric will call us tomorrow.
I just want to bring one more thing up about the parking. So, and I'll tell you what concerns me about the waiver. What you say, so you have two retail spaces, you have a print shop and a personal gym. Okay, so let's say you have 2 employees in every single one, 2, 4, 6. There's 8 of your parking spaces, 8 of your 12 parking spaces that are taken up by employees. So I just want to point that out. Even if it's a personal trainer, it's a one-on-one. It's 2 people in the space, 2 people in the print shop, 2 people in retail 1, and 2 people in retail 2. So the issue before is that it was just an auto body, an auto one. It was a single use. It wasn't multiple uses of different things. So I just want the fellow board members to think about that before.
I think that's great, and I think that if we can have off-site parking that is protected in terms of, you know, in perpetuity, that it can be used for this individual owns it or somebody else owns it, and it has safe, you know, access. That's the optimal situation. I guess the only reason I was considering the waivers. If we're creating a dangerous situation, we should try to get as much parking as we can, but make sure it's not dangerous.
Yeah, no, I completely understand. I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, I mean, the problem there is if we grant the waiver, I mean, I believe Mr. Geller already stated, like, people are just gonna park in the plaza and then walk across the street there. So by granting the waiver, we might just be making a more dangerous situation, even if it's what we're trying to avoid.
I just a quick comment. I would agree. I think that the waiver is probably out in my mind. I think that that people, I expect, assuming what businesses are in here, that people will be walking across the Roach Brothers Plaza one way or the other. But at least if you put the employees down at the gas station, that would at least take some chance away. And that would have to be simply employees, not customers.
Yeah, I mean, the more I think about it too, the more I'd like to see both the crosswalk at the gas station and the one by the plaza restriped, if the applicant's not opposed to that.
All right, so I think we're almost there. I think it's a great project to have that site cleaned up. I just want to make sure that we put some thought into the decision letter so it works for the applicant and we protect the town and the future users of pedestrians there. So if there are no more comments or concerns from either the applicant or from the board, why don't we continue this to August 17th, and hopefully by then we can have a draft decision letter. You know, maybe Mr. O'Brien can capture some of our concerns this evening, and Mr. Dias can capture some of the things we raised and incorporate them into the site plan, and we can, you know, get this going next meeting.
All right. And I'm assuming the board will be continuing the public hearing until the next meeting as well.
Yeah, I think is that how the board wants to go?
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Mr. Geller, Mr. Jimmy, Mr.
Yeah,
Ross?
that's
No,
fine.
we need a motion. We need a motion to continue the public hearing.
All right, so somebody would like to make a motion to that
I'll make
effect?
a motion to continue the public hearing to August 17th.
I'll second.
6:30 p.m.
At 6:30.
For discussion.
Motion by Mr. Jimmy and second by Mr. McDonald. Discussion?
Yeah, I just want to let you know, Mr. Chair, I will not be able to attend the 17th meeting.
Okay, so it requires a special permit. We have two associates that are both with us this evening. So we can appoint one of them. Do you have a preference, Mr. O'Brien, who we appoint?
No.
No. So why don't we say, MJ, if you're fine with that, we'll appoint you for this hearing. So you'll be voting on this project.
I would be okay with that, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
And then that way, because it just that's the point of an associate member, is to fill in special permits. So we'll do that. And so it's the second. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion, Mr. Geller?
No, thank you. I'm good.
But Mr. Geller, you'll have the plans before the meeting. Maybe you can provide some comments to staff based on what you see and the changes made based on your comments.
Absolutely.
Thank you. All right, so if there's no further discussion, we'll call the roll. Mr. Jimmy,
Yes.
Ms. Rojas,
Yes.
Mr. Geller,
Yes.
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. All right. Thank you.
Thank you all for your time. We appreciate it.
You-
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll go back to my, my agenda. The next item is item 3 on the agenda. Scotland Industrial Park. This is a release from a covenant request. And I'm sorry, Mr. O'Brien and Mr.
Sure, we actually have the applicant here. David Kleiner from Collins Engineering, as well as, I forget your name from, Mr. Parker from Parker Property Management. I'll let them, let them have the floor.
Go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Dave Kleiner from Collins Civil Engineering Group. I guess we're here tonight for one reason, and that is to try to release the covenant based on a prospective sale of the road and the properties. There was a covenant that was written back in 1977. That was for the initial road and for the initial industrial park. And when we came back in 2009 and extended the road underneath the power lines and out to 75 Scotland, the last building at the end of the road, there was a second covenant written on the road, which included the extension and the whole road. So essentially the first covenant covered all the way up to the power lines. And then when we extended the road, that second covenant, it covered all the way up to the power lines and then the extension of the road. And what we're trying to do is release the covenant so that we can go forward with the purchase and sale. And as it stands now, just for the road extension, I've done an as-built from the engineer on the project. It is built in substantial compliance with the exception of there's a finished coat of pavement that needs to be done. Now, we haven't done that because construction is still going on down at the end of the site, and we didn't want to ruin the road. The road's held up very well. I think we have a 2.5-inch binder, and it is not even cracked, and it's been there since 2009. So the first thing is we need to get a finished coat on there. We need to, of course, raise all the drainage structures, and we need to put hoods in all the catch basins and set the concrete bounds. So those items have not been done. And what we'd like to do is come up with some kind of solution where the planning board would feel comfortable releasing the covenant with either funds or bonds, or however the board would like to set this up so that they're comfortable with this project being fulfilled. It is a private road. It's going to remain private. And that's kind of where we stand tonight. I did go, the contractor did go out there and put some hoods in the catch basins, which is very important to stormwater management. Unfortunately, they ran out of the product and they still need to put some more hoods in there. And that's why I was going to send Shane an updated plan showing the hoods, but I did go out there and I inspected it, and they did run out of the hoods. They need to get some more out there. I think they're going to get them out there tomorrow. And I can update the plan showing that the hoods have been inserted. So the only thing left on the road for that extension would be the finished coat of pavement and the concrete bounds.
So can you're referencing the extension, but the road begins at Route 104 and goes down to that cul-de-sac. What is the plan to, and I know when we approved that last building, we talked about potentially, increasing the bonds to make sure that that road didn't end up like another First Street, a fireworks circle in Bridgewater, where there wasn't sufficient bond to finish the street. What is the plan to finish the entire street?
That would be up. Yeah, that would. Todd, are you there?
Is there, I mean, because you're asking us to release a covenant, 2 different covenants, one for the original and one for the extension, correct?
Yeah, they're actually the same covenant. One just covers both. They rewrote the exact same covenant.
Because that road, I mean, the whole road needs to be redone. And there's only what, about $30,000 in a bond at this point?
Somewhere in that vicinity, yeah.
So what So I saw the estimate that was provided to the board this evening, and it only looks like that's the estimate for the extension.
That was only for the extension. That is correct.
So how would we be expected to release the covenant without knowing what it costs to do the entire road?
Was that something that was gonna be?
No, we hadn't even discussed that. We were just trying for that lot one and the road extension, what we submitted in. That was it.
Well, I guess my only concern is that we've ended up in a situation on two other streets, First Street and a Fireworks Circle comes before us periodically. And once everything's released, we have no mechanism to increase the bonds. So I know when we had spoken to you before, Mr. Packer, about the last building that you did, you mentioned that the entire road was going to be done upon completion of the
Yeah, of the last site we were going to work on. No, you're right. About the last.
So if you're getting out of it and you're only putting a bond up for the extension, how are we ever going to get the whole road done to protect those owners in there?
So the road itself, and this is not on an as-built, on my observations from being down there for the last, since 2009 or 7 actually. All the buildings that are built, according to the covenant, they have services. They obviously do because they're occupied. So the only thing that I can see to finish this road is the way. And the way is, if you've been down there, it's not the greatest way.
No, and that's what I'm saying. That whole way needs to be redone.
So the services are in, the sewer is in, the services are in for all the buildings, according to the covenant. And I guess what we would need is a price on the way for the whole road. Because that there is a base on the whole road.
And honestly, that's what I thought we were getting today. And then I saw the numbers at the top and I questioned Mr. Tansey. It says from, and I don't have it in front of me, it's in another email, it said from 55 to 75. And I questioned the town, how did this happen? Because it's only a section of the road.
Pat, I can answer that question. Because of I would say that the portion of the road that you're describing, it'd be better if I explain it this way. The portion of the road that they have shown was part of the 2009 definitive plan modification, which had certain waiver requests and certain conditions of approval that seemed specific to that area of the subdivision. It seems like that portion of the subdivision was more so subject to the 2009 covenant, whereas the original roadway prior to this modification was subject to that 1978 modification, where I would say in 2009 we became a little more detail oriented when it came to subdivisions in the town of Bridgewater. Whereas I believe it's part of the packet as well. I sent over a copy of the 1974 plan, which showed.
I think we need to. I think if the Packers are removing themselves from the subdivision, we need to make sure it's finished.
Sure.
Right, from Route 104 all the way down, not just have a crappy road from Route 104 to number 55 and then a nice road from 55 to 75. I think that there's a lot of business owners in this town that feel that the planning board left them high and dry years ago on First Street and Fireworks Circle because we released all the lots and didn't maintain proper bonds. I just think that if we're looking, if this is the only leverage we have to get the road completed, we need to figure out what it's going to cost to do and make sure that money's in the bank.
Well, I would say that we are holding some money, but I would say that maybe that money that we are holding was based on 1980s numbers when we received it. In terms of the top coat, like I said, we weren't very descriptive in terms of work needing to be done. We've released a sufficient amount of lots and do have, I believe, 3 remaining lots within the covenant, one being a large wetland lot, one being the lot 1 property that the board approved a site plan on in 2019, possibly, I think 2020, as well as a third additional lot that the applicant found that had not been released from the covenant, which is a small portion of the property.
Yeah, and I'll turn it over to the rest of the board. I don't want to keep talking, but I think it's fine to release the covenant once we have a calculation and a bond posted, and then go from there. But I'll open up to other board questions.
All I have to say is I'm in total agreement with the chair. That's all.
Yeah, I'll echo that. I'm in agreement with Mr. Driscoll.
Same here.
I mean, I've been lucky enough to be on the board long enough where I remember the project coming before us, and we spoke to Mr. Parker about, I actually wanted to condition that project on the road being completed, and we had the discussion that it would be done, you know, once the construction on there was done, which is fine, but I just want to ensure that's done, and the way we ensure that is through a bond, so.
We'd have to definitely redo the calculations set on what you saw earlier. That you saw in that email earlier.
All right.
So hey, my name's Todd Barkley. I work for Claire Properties, and I represent the buyer, or the probable buyer of the parcels from Mr. Parker. So for clarity, what needs to be done on the existing road? I understand that's in disrepair, but my understanding in dealing with our attorneys is the covenant applies to the two end parcels. So what's the way that David was talking about?
I don't have the covenant in front, all the information in front of me, but in past discussions and approvals on Scotland Boulevard, we've always considered the way from Route 104 to the cul-de-sac. And that, I don't believe, from Route 104 to the cul-de-sac has ever been finished. And if it has, it's in terrible disrepair at this point. So I think before we release the final covenants, we should make sure we have adequate bond to protect, you know, you who's buying this lot potentially, and the other investors in there, to make sure that there's adequate surety to properly develop and finish that road.
So was the top coat put on that at one point?
That would be for you, Ted.
I don't even know if that's a top coat or just a binder along the roads that old. I don't know. It was before I got involved in it. We put the storage in. We've done other major repairs on there, drainage repairs, things like that. But as far as the top coat, that I don't know.
Yeah, and like I stated earlier, this is one of those strange subdivisions that the roadway was built and approved in the 70s, and then as Scotland Industrial Park has grown and developed, the applicant did come before the planning board in 2009 with a modification to that initial subdivision plan. There has been, as stated, lots released and monies held by the board since the 80s. However, with the extension or modification of the end of Scotland Boulevard, kind of creating this cul-de-sac location, the applicant did provide some new information to allow for the upland to be developed, as well as the project that came before the planning board a couple of years ago for lot 1, with what we assumed was an extension of the street at some point, but however, the board did approve it as an access driveway. So it's not, it's treated as a driveway, not really as an extension of Scotland Boulevard. Not to say that there is truck access and vehicles going in and out of that area, but as the board stated, there are some issues that need to be resolved. as part of this, we did receive an estimate of a portion of the top coat today. And we do have our town engineer, Greg Tanzi, reviewing that information, as well as Mr. Tanzi is going to have to review his own bond information based on the work that needs to be completed there.
So Brian, Mr. Tanzi is our town engineer now, but Mr. Antonero, the DPW director, has a lot of historical knowledge in town. There's also a DPW director. Was he brought in on this at all?
No, we had we received this, we've been talking to Parker Property probably for a couple weeks now, and I was going to probably have an in-person discussion a little bit sooner with them. However, I did get COVID a couple weeks ago, so I had to push back our in-person meeting. However, we did, if the board wants kind of some of the historic knowledge, I'm happy to have a conversation with Mr. Antonero in terms of his historic knowledge. Greg and I did have a conversation today with the applicant, as well as Parker Property and Collins Engineering regarding Lot 1, as well as the roadway. And we brought in our environmental planner, Steve Salbo, with some questions as well, as this project will be going through in front of the Conservation Commission in about a week or so. But I'm happy to reach out to Azu for some of the historic knowledge. If Azu's been here since the 70s, God bless him, he should retire. But a lot of some of the historic knowledge that I've kind of looked at, and especially with a lot of information from the Plymouth County Registry of Deeds for Scotland Boulevard, there's really, it's a very simple 2-pager that I've included as the packet. I did provide the 2009 approval set to the board today, showing that modification. But the information on the covenant is very brief, and we kind of use the same language as default language for a lot of our covenant information. But it does beg the question of, some of the standards that they did ask to be waived as part of this project, and the assumption that this project and roadway will remain private, because I don't see a situation where the town would accept this roadway at this time or anytime soon.
Right, but we also have a bond, we're setting a bond for a private road right after this too, so I just think that,
Sure.
I just think that we need to make sure that everybody in this protected, and that it doesn't come back to the town like the other 2 neighborhoods have.
So what's our option to actually move forward on this tonight? What can we actually do here tonight?
I think we need to continue it until we find out, what the cost is to finish that road from Route 104 to the end, and then we can vote on that. The bond, the covenant release contingent upon receiving those funds.
Yep, that was exactly my thought. So
I apologize, Mr. Chair. It's a continuance based on the contingency, or you're not stating an approval based on the contingency? What?
Well, I think we have to continue this to the next meeting. I don't think we have enough information.
Okay.
We don't have any numbers in front of us. How do we vote on a bond to set a bond and release a covenant without the number?
Sure.
I completely agreed.
This is again Todd Barkley from Claire, the buyer. Can you condition it on? Can you condition approval on setting the number after the fact? Right. So if in the next week you get you vote the approval, whatever the percentage is over the top, 150%, and that's presented in the next week, and then the covenant's removed and the town gets what they want.
I'm not comfortable with that. I think there's too many unknowns here right now.
How do we? I mean, we have to come up with a scope of work. What's? I mean, I'd like to help out any way I can, but how do we make sure the town's protected and get the bond? You know what I mean? We have a calculation for part of the road, and we don't even know what the rest of the road needs.
I'm
I would
sorry.
agree. We need to see the figure and talk about it before we can prove it.
Greg, do you have any information about any updates you may have? I guess since her meeting at 3 o'clock today.
Well, what I'm gonna have to do, or what I had been planning on doing is I'll talk to Azu. And it looks like I'm gonna have to come up with a number to pave the entire roadway. And I did review some of their cost estimate, unit cost estimates. It looks like they've got allowances for the cost increases. My last bond, so I want to just make sure that I've got good unit costs, that it covers the entire road, make sure that all the bounds are in that's supposed to be in, and then come up with a number. But I have not come up with anything concrete since our since our meeting this afternoon.
How many feet of the road did that $70,000 estimate cover, and how many feet of the road? How many feet is the road?
450, about 450 feet.
And how many feet is the road in total?
Approximately 1,000. I'm not sure without paperwork in front of me.
I
Approximately
believe it was 1,000 to the extension, so it's about 1,500.
So we just took that multiplied by 3, we're like 200,000 to finish that, just top coat and raise structures.
Yeah. I mean, Hurley and Hanson did an as-built. I think it was back in the late 80s. And that's the last as-built that was done for the older part of the road. And they were doing the force main for the sewer. And I've been following that to get all the utilities out there, which are there, you know, they're in. The catch basins, they did an as-built on all the catch basins. So that plan, I think I gave Shane a copy of as an as-built for the upper part of the road. And so all I can say is I haven't done anything as far as locating or seeing or actually putting anything on a plan, but I have used the Hurley and Hanson plan to do all the work that I've been out doing out there, finding any kind of utilities that there are, and they're accurate.
I mean, if the board's okay with it, I just think that the staff needs to do some more research and provide us with an updated bond calculation
Yes, that's what's my feeling.
before we
I
can.
agree.
I think Mr.
I
Chan
also agree.
has to make a complete.
I think we're way off. I mean, if there's 30 there and they're proposing 70, I mean, it could be a couple 100,000. I just want to make sure we do it right. That's all.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know you wanted to wrap it up tonight, but can we move it to the 17th?
Well, not really. One question I have though is, since it's been a private road from day one, and I know you had the issues on First Street and Fireworks Circle, I'd heard about those. But we've been maintaining what's there for a road. It put the storage in, and we don't own all the buildings down there, as you know. There is other business owners, landowners, and we plow it. We clean the catch basins, patch the potholes, do all of that. And we have been doing that for 40 years, 35, 40 years. And I plan on continue doing that. Is it still apply to have the large bond to cover something to be, if you had to step in to fix it, if we have been doing that all along, taking care of that road and taking care of certain areas of it. We have done some overlays down there. I don't know if you've driven down in a while on areas that were real bad. We've had contractors do overlays, different things to try to to help it out. But being a private road, we're not here to ask the town to take it over. Does that still make a difference that you need such a large, a bond to cover the whole road? When for 40 years, we've been taking care of the road.
I mean, I think what happens is when the business owners come to the town and they say, why did you release the lots? You were there to protect us. You're supposed to have adequate bond, and we don't. That's when there's a problem. And I think we had this discussion when the last project came before us, and this was raised, and we were assured that the road was going to be completed before you were out of there. So I think all we're trying to do is have that surety that if you do stop taking care of the road, you don't finish it, that it's done and the other property owners in there are protected. So.
Okay.
So I'll just try one more time. So if it's a couple 100,000 and you get a bond for, $500,000 or 750,000, would that be sufficient to move it forward tonight? And, our interest is trying to get the deal closed, and we have bank financing and everything lined up. And I think we're going to own roughly 40% of the properties on the road, depending on how you do the calculation. Our long-term plan in instances like this is we try to enter into some sort of cost sharing agreement with all the other members on the road to maintain it going forward. That's operationally, and then also repairs. But that's going to take a bit of time. It generally does.
Well, I think we also want to see the road completed. But is the board comfortable with saying that whatever Mr. Tansey sets the bond, we're okay with it? I mean, it's just when is your financing? When do you have? If we had a special meeting for 20 minutes next week,
we're good to go. It's we don't necessarily have an end date per se. It's just the financial markets have been very, very choppy over the last X period of time. I know they stabilized a little bit, but don't want to have something happen on a macro level and not be able to close this deal. I mean, the hope was we could close a couple of weeks ago. We're planning to do Friday, obviously. Next week would be better than the 17th. And appreciate it.
My only concern is that we don't even have a bond estimate from the town, and we just got an estimate for pavement today. You know what I mean? That's my only concern. I mean, I'd be willing to, if Mr. Tansey and town staff can get everything together, and we need to have a 20-minute meeting next week, I'd be willing to do that if that helps. I don't know if the rest of the board would or not, but I think we'd be voting on something we know nothing about tonight. That's all.
Yeah, I'm comfortable going with Mr. Tansey's figures if we get those next week, but we can't go forward on this tonight. We don't have the information we need. That's a bad precedent. We're not here to rush things. We're here to do things correctly.
I would agree. I would, as much as I don't think it's a good idea to set up a special meeting for this, I will attend. But I just feel that the applicant should have been making an assumption that we're going to approve when there were issues involved, and that's not a good idea.
I would also be fine to attend next week. And I agree with the rest of the team. I'd rather wait.
I mean, I'm just saying, it should, if we have all the info, it shouldn't take long, so. And I don't want to drive a business out of town. I want to be, try to help any way I can, but we don't have the info, so.
I just want to add some clarification as well. So is the board's assumption that based on the information in front of them that you're looking for a bond estimate for the entirety of Scotland Boulevard rather than the portion provided or is displayed from the estimate provided by the applicant? Or actually, let me pull it up. I don't think
the whole road needs to be finished.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. I'll check with the zoo too, as well as, and just making sure, because I do think it would make a difference if at some point, the board at the time felt that there was an adequacy of the way, for Scotland Boulevard, on the portion of the road that was, where the lots were released, or there was an as-built from Curly Hanson, but I can do some historic research on that. I haven't found anything, but we also probably did things differently, but check that out.
How old is the bond?
How old is the bond itself? We received the bond from, I believe in the packet was from the 80s.
Right, so obviously that bond was there to ensure that the entire road get done, because that was before phase 2. So obviously the road's not complete, and that's why there was money held. So I think we need to make sure that that whole road is done, so it's not a problem for the town later on.
Sure. Yeah, I can't speak to when that amount was set. I could look for minutes from the 70s, but I'll check around.
The first bond was put into the registry 1977.
So do we have a motion to either continue this to next Wednesday or the 17th, whatever the board wishes? I'm open to either. If somebody wants to make a motion, we can discuss it.
I'll make a motion to continue next Wednesday.
I'll second the motion, assuming that we can get a quorum.
Yeah, agreed.
All right, so the board's looking for a special meeting for next Wednesday, August 10th.
Right, and let's just have this as the only item on the agenda, just so we can try to move this forward for.
Well, as long as you have a quorum, I can make the 10th.
Okay.
So with the 9th, the 8th.
I can be that, and we already have confirmation from 2 others. So we have a motion and a second to put this on next Wednesday. What's that date, Mr. O'Brien?
Next Wednesday is August 10th.
The 10th.
August 10th at 6:30. Motion and second. Is there any further discussion? Ms. Rojas?
I vote yes.
Mr. Geller?
Yes.
Mr. Jemian?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Right,
Thank
so
you, Board. Thank you.
the next agenda item, and I'll turn this over to Mr. Tanzi, is Old North Estates, a new bond estimate.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is for Old North Estates. What they did is they put down the binder course of the roadway. And so that reduced the bond amount down. So with contingency is looking, the number that I got was 160,797.
That's the revised amount, Mr. Tanzi?
Yeah,
Do you have that on your screen?
I don't have it on my screen.
I'll pull it up.
Shane can pull
I
out.
can find it. Is it in the packet there somewhere?
Yeah, I'll get it from the packet and share. Sorry, I was looking at board meeting minutes from 1977. We actually do have them. So I'll see if I can find. I can find information specific to the previous item, but I'll bring this up right now.
I think Mr. Antonero will be a wealth of knowledge on that too.
Agreed. All right, I got it in the bookmarks. I'm bringing up the revised amount. So this is featuring the revised amount. We also do have Eric Costa here as well, if you want to, the board would like to, or if you'd like to ask any questions, or the board would like to ask any questions.
So could you repeat the bond estimate again? How much is it?
It looks like the total surety required for completion would be 167.97, and the subtotal completion is 107, 198. And this is on with the new numbers.
The applicant, and Mr. Tanzi both agreed on those numbers.
I would say that Mr. Tanzi has agreed on these numbers, that he has provided those numbers, but I will let Mr. Costa speak for himself.
How you guys doing? So on the bond amount, I'm just a little, confused about 160,000 because my contractor charged me 150,000 to put the road in. And I think I only have like 23,000 left to finish the road with my contractor. And I have a lot just sitting there with a house that's already getting built, and I'm already 500,000 into the house, which is going to be my own house. And I can't even get an occupancy permit until the road is finished. So I'm just trying to come up with a better solution with the planning board that I can actually sell this lot or build a house on this lot without putting such a high number of a bond up, because I don't have those funds just to put up, since I have so much money already into it. I mean, I bought the property for 400,000. I have 125,000 into the road already. I got 500,000 into my own house that I'm building already. And I'm just trying to see if there's a better solution. If I can, maybe if you guys can decide that maybe I can't get my occupancy permit to move into my own house instead of throwing a bond up. And how I look at it is this is a private road. So it's on my conditions that I read when I got them earlier. It said that a maintenance bond should be deposited with the town by the applicant prior to street acceptance, which the street will never get accepted, in the amount determined by the roadway superintendent, which I've talked to Mr. Tanzi a few times. And then it said the town will assume responsibility of street acceptance, that the street will never be accepted. I do understand from the last video I just watched that you guys are protecting the other property owner. But I feel like the leverage is that I can't get my occupancy permit. That's why I feel like you guys have the leverage. I have a family that I got to be out by like at least October. 2 kids and everything. So I got to get into that house anyways. So I'm going to finish the road.
Is there any material part of the bond estimate that you disagree with?
Yeah, so the one is the electrical, the 15,000. I already have a receipt that they're already paid up. They're actually coming and putting the telephone poles in 2 weeks. That's one of them. I feel like trees and planting $10,000. I feel like that's a pretty high number. The lumen seed in 6,000, that's a pretty high number. And then the $43,908 for the for the stormwater recharge system. My contractor that's doing the whole road didn't even charge me that much money. I have the whole proposal from my contractor of how much in each detail that he's charged me.
Eric, are the underground utilities in already?
The underground utilities are not, the sewer and the water is in already, but the electrical will be in 2 weeks, scheduled.
Didn't we approve this underground utilities?
Excuse me?
Wasn't it underground utilities?
Wasn't it under?
For the approval?
Yeah.
I have on this plan, I have high GW. Let me pull up the utilities. map.
Well, I just doing some telephone poles, I subdivision rules and regs before your underground utilities.
I have an easement deed already from National Grid, if that, where they're putting the poles.
Sorry, I'm going based on
I
the.
didn't sit in on this, I'm sorry, because my mother's in a butter, so I don't know, I can't remember.
I don't see anything in terms of electric utilities. I'm going based on the 2020 Frank Gallagher plan. The only thing that I see is something that says high GW. But I don't see any overhead wires.
You don't see overhead?
I'm looking.
I thought there might be a note here saying that the utility should be coordinated on site, is that right?
It does say that. It says dig safe and no, it says the contractor shall notify dig safe in the town of Bridgewater, water, sewer, and highway departments prior to the start of any excavation work in order to verify the location of existing underground utilities.
And that was done prior to the demo of the building that was on site, the existing building.
The applicant did have a pre-construction meeting and request a pre-construction meeting in 2021, I'm sorry, goodness. And we have, I have inspections. Okay. That was from Greg, inspections in regarding February 9th, just in regards to sanitary and water modification inspections, but that's probably related to the first request.
So can we go back to Greg's estimate again?
Sure. You want me to bring it up on screen?
Please.
All right. Let me go back in.
Greg, is there anything that you feel since you've done this estimate that doesn't need to be included in this, so that has been completed, or?
Well, the only thing that was done since the last estimate was the base course paving. But the drainage and the electrical, these utilities, the plantings, and I think bounds.
The other thing I think you need to check on is as long as I've been here, we've never waived the underground utilities. So before Eric pays for it twice, we've got to check that. He may have gotten a waiver, but I just want to make sure.
Well, yeah, the underground utilities, that they may have been paid, but they're not installed. Typically, what we do is we take the work that's installed off the bond estimate.
Right, but I guess when you look at those sheets, does it specify above ground utilities or underground? And was there a waiver for underground?
No, my understanding was that it would come across overhead to a pole and then go down underground.
Underground where? Right at the top of the street?
Yeah.
So it comes across North Street.
Correct.
To the top of this street here, this new street, and then it goes underground from North Street to the two houses, correct?
That was my understanding of what.
Yeah, that's typically how we'd approve it. So.
Right.
So National Grid engineer came out and they're putting it overhead from North Street to a certain distance in the beginning of the roadway, and then they're putting another pole to go overhead further up, and then from there we're gonna go underground to the houses. they decided that 2 poles were better than 1.
I mean, that's another discussion, but so back to the bond estimate, I guess, right?
Well, I can take off the electric once it goes in. If you put in these, the drainage, I mean, drainage is typically, an expensive utility that requires a lot of heavy equipment, and it can be labor intensive. So I wanted to cover the town on that, but if those items went in, I mean, I could get the bond estimate down quite a bit.
So Greg, the drainage is not in yet, the utilities are not in yet, is that correct?
Yeah, the drainage is not in yet, and the electric isn't in yet. The water and sewer are in, and the water and sewer have been tested. So there is some utility services that have to go from into the house, and connections into the house have to be made, but that's that's not an exorbitant line item. But as far as the rest of those utilities, they're in. But again, if the electric goes in, if he gets the drainage in, I can take a lot off this bond estimate.
From my knowledge, are we just protecting the other homeowner to get the road done? Because for me to release, to get that lot released, is that what you guys' plan is, to protect the other homeowner, even though I am going to be living there myself? Because I thought just because it's a private subdivision and that you guys won't have responsibility ever for the road, that I would, that pretty much it's on me. So that's how I looked at it. And then when I, bought the property and went over the subdivision conditions, I read number 7 pretty good a couple times, and I've showed a couple other people, and it seems to me what it says is which the town will assume responsibility if responsibility at street acceptance, but the street will never get accepted. That's, I think, and then that's where I got my confusion from. And also the 50% contingency. I didn't know, I don't know what that is, the 50% contingency. Just from my knowledge, if you can just explain that, that's all. I just want to,
Mr. Chairman, the 50% contingency is what was developed by the DPW, and it was there it's a twofold contingency. You have to have some type of contingency just based on unforeseen circumstances, but usually when things go into default or things get sold or whatever, it's usually years down the road. And like what we just saw with Scotland, what was adequate back in 1980 some odd is no longer nearly adequate in today's money. Also, it gives the incentive to the developer to finish the work because he wants that big contingency to get back. So it's basically, it's just leverage. And, even if the road remains private, developers can live there for 2 years not pay capital gains tax, and then they move out. And then, you know, the homeowners start complaining to the boards and the DPW and saying, you know, how come, you know, you let the bond money go, and, you know, now here we are, you know, holding the bag on a road that's never gonna, you know, be accepted as a public way, and it was never done completely or done properly or whatever. So that's the reason behind why we have the contingencies that we have.
All right, so we have a number before us that Mr. Costa disagrees with and that you have set, right? So Mr. Costa can always come back and ask for reduction, right? At a later meeting. And he doesn't have to post it, but just so we can move on and get a bond set. Mr. O'Brien, does it make sense to vote yes or no on this bond amount? And then if Mr. Tanzi and Mr. Costa work something out, he can either come in and post it, or he can come back and ask for reduction before he posts it, correct?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, because, you know, we don't.
Well,
I mean,
we'll be here all night discussing what number's right, what's wrong, what's done, what's not done. I mean, I think the board has a number before us that we should either accept or not accept. And then encourage Mr. Foster and Mr. Tanzi to see if there's anything they can work out, if there's any differences or whatnot, and then go from there, right?
Yeah, I'm happy to be an in between as well, just to provide that information to the board.
Can I just say one thing about the 50% contingency? He said it's about leverage, but if we can't get occupancy permits over there to build houses, isn't that a leverage enough? I mean, I got a $500,000 house that's sitting there. I would think that's a lot of leverage to not even, I can't move in.
In regards to lot 1 or lot 2 or both?
I got lot 1 right now. I got that, but then I got a lot just sitting there, which is pretty much 500 and something with the road and, you know, the lot. I mean, what I had to pay for. If I build a house there and you guys ain't giving me an occupancy permit, the road has to be done to sell the houses. I mean, the bank's already telling me that, you know, the bond, we're the ones going to subject to finishing the road, the bank. So if I sold that lot to a person that I know, the bank's telling me that we're going to put on the P&S subject to finishing road. I mean, I thought all that's pretty good.
Eric, what are you trying to get your lot released? Are you trying to get your occupancy or that lot released? Which one?
I'm just trying to get the lot released. I don't even want my occupancy. I want to finish the road, obviously, before I get my occupancy. I just want to get the lot so I can have money to do everything because I'm so far into it. Just so if I can sell that.
Do you have a closing date set for that lot yet?
For that lot, no. We can't because, you know, the bond.
So why don't we have a bond number in front of us? Why don't we accept it? That way, if you decide to pay it, you can pay it. If you want to go back and ask for a reduction, you can come back for reduction.
Okay.
You know what I mean? We have a number in front of us. We'll sit here tonight debating what's done, what's not done all night. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
Mr. Tanzi provided us with a number. I think we have to move forward with that number then.
Yeah, we don't have much of a choice on that one.
So what does the board want to do?
This suggestion is proper. Mr. Chairman,
Do you want to make a motion, Mr. Jemian?
I'll make a motion to approve the bond that's been proposed by Mr. Tanzi.
I'll second.
Just for discussion, as part of that bond, also the release of the other lot.
I'm sorry. Sorry.
So we won't release the lot until that bond is posted, correct?
Right.
So,
Right.
That would be, yes, lot 2.
But in the meantime, if that nothing prevents Mr. Costa from coming back and asking for reduction, so.
Correct.
All right. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Mr. Geller,
Yes.
Mr. Jemian,
Yes.
Mrs. Rojas,
Yes.
am I forgetting? Okay, Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. All right, thank you. What do we have next? Yeah. Back to my agenda.
I believe it's just committee reports and minutes.
Yep. Oh, I'll leave. Do you want me to speak, Mr. Chair?
I was trying to get back to my packet. Yeah.
You just lit up, Mr. Chairman.
I lit up.
Fireworks?
Good.
No, I'm outside. I'm outside trying to stay away from the noise. So, and I apologize. My camera's not working great. So
Oh, we can see you.
Mhm.
it's been going in and out though. So, all right. So we have under other business, we have Mr. Geller has notified us that due to time constraints that he does not want to serve on the CPC. We recently appointed him to that, so we don't have to make a decision tonight. If somebody on the board would like to serve on that committee, I guess either let Shane and myself know or speak up at our next meeting and we can appoint you. Unless there's somebody that wants to come forward this evening, we can discuss it this evening.
Do they meet Wednesdays, was it?
I'm not sure. I believe so.
So they meet the last Wednesday of every month.
It's a position I'm interested in, but another Wednesday would be hard. What time do they meet, Mr. Gilla? Do you recall?
6:30.
Michael, think about it. And if you want to do it, we can take it up at the next meeting. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Be great if you want to do it. If nobody wants to do it, I'll do it, but I'd prefer if somebody else would want to do it. So if you can do it and you have time to do it, that'd be great. So, but I don't think we need to make a decision tonight, right, Mr. O'Brien?
Yeah.
Or-
No, we got 2 straight Wednesdays of, we got 2 more meetings, I guess, a special meeting next week and a regularly scheduled meeting to potentially mull it over if anyone's interested.
So if you want to do it, that'd be great. Just let us know, you know, and we can go from there. Planning board minutes, 5/18, 5/25, 6/1, and 6/15. If everybody reviewed them, wants to make a motion on those, I'll take a motion.
Yeah, I'll move to approve those minutes.
I'll second it.
Mr. Geller? Any discussion on those minutes?
Just wanted to make sure that no one provided any comments in terms of any board members. I don't think I received any comments from any board members regards to any edits.
Okay. For us,
I vote yes.
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Mr. Geller,
Yes.
Mr. Jemian,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Okay, did MJ and Ted still with us, or they quit already? Must be a
They're
third.
both here.
Yeah, we're here.
They're both here.
And that was an easy meeting, right? So.
We're getting
All
out
meetings
early.
are easy that happen.
Yeah.
Why is my pen blurry? Oh, because I blurred my background. It's so confusing. I just have a couple things for a planner report. If I have the board's attention. Okay. So we had a pre-construction meeting with 1925 Old Plymouth Street last week. So we're working with them. We're working on getting the engineering review fee from them. as part of our requirements of the planning board. So we're working on that. I'm trying to work on a process that's better suited to get those engineering review fees for Greg to go on to the site. So working on some internal communications as well as working with applicants to receive said fees. In other news, at the August 17th meeting, we are looking to have the folks who are looking to do a development project. I know they were before the board for a zoning ordinance change at some point for a zoning line. But the folks over near Henry Perkins are looking to do the project over at Henry Perkins. Would like to provide a design, I would call it a preliminary design board comment to be placed on that agenda. So they would like to kind of provide a presentation of what they're looking to do there for a mixed use project at the site. So if the board would like to entertain that at that upcoming meeting, I'm happy to place it on the agenda and let the applicant know. So it wouldn't be a formal application. It would just be a information meeting where I guess the board can provide comments, ask questions. Abutters would not be notified as part of this, but we also welcome any members of the public to watch and attend any of our meetings. But it's not necessarily a public hearing or just an information session for the board for a proposal that could potentially be before the board in a proper manner at some time in the future.
Well, that'll be interesting because I thought 220 Broad was going to be part of their proposal. So with them going ahead with their own project, I'm going to be very interested to see what they come up with. Because I feel like that property was kind of key to that.
Mr. Geller, are you going to be there on the 17th?
Just procedural wise, Shane, if this is a preliminary presentation,
correct,
are they just speaking or are we going to be able to ask questions? And if we're going to be able to ask questions, then why can't the public too?
I guess it's up to the public. Like I said, it's not necessarily a public hearing. It's very informal. So I would leave it up to the board in the chair and how you would like to run it. I think public comment is appreciated for all meetings. I'm just saying it's not necessarily something the board needs to do, or I would leave it up to the board and the means of doing it. I'm just saying it's one of those things where it's not a finite and final design, but I think public comment would be appreciative in terms of what the board is looking for. It's just necessarily, I'm not going to be, let's see. Yeah, I'm thinking that's fine.
So what is board availability on the 17th? Is Mr. Geller, you won't be there?
Not.
Hey, will anybody else not be available that evening? Do we want to have it that evening where we don't have a full board, or do we want to do something? I mean, it is a special permit. It's going to require 4 out of 5 votes. Do we want to?
Are we talking are we talking 210 Broad?
No,
it's not even a special permit. There's nothing.
No, the Perkins Foundry we're talking about.
Right, there's no special permit. This is just a preliminary discussion where the applicant's going to provide some images and not even engineered plans, just to get comments and to work with the board through a preliminary design standpoint.
Correct. I guess we could do one of two things. We can either ask them if they want to wait to the first meeting in September, or would we have a full board then?
Well, you don't need a full board. It's just it's an informal discussion. I'm happy to accept comments.
It's just an information presentation to the board looking for our feedback.
Right. I have a slight concern with that though, because it seems to me like that kind of informational presentation should be more in the public hearing domain, because at the early parts of a project, that's when public input is most crucial. Is there some kind of what's the mechanism they're using to bring this before the board in a not public hearing?
Can I kind of give some background? I think it comes from previous projects that may have appeared before the board where there was discussion internally that staff has reviewed everything. And at that point, the board wanted to provide some comments. However, I think that something had been stated, I can't speak to the past, but from my understanding is that staff reviewed it, so the board shouldn't necessarily provide additional comments on something. So I think the approach based on what this applicant wants to do is that they want to stray away from any issues. And if there's any preliminary design questions, rather than us email the board preliminary designs or just have a discussion with individual members, that they would like to take an approach. I would consider it more like kind of like a community meeting sort of approach. So it's not necessarily.
Is it a community meeting if the community isn't informed though?
Yeah, it's a fair question. I can reach out to the applicant. It's in terms of what they would like to do. We could even recommend at that meeting that applicant do a community meeting to reach out to members of the public from there. I just think this is one of their first steps to get this project out there beyond the zoning ordinance. And I think they just kind of want to give a board essentially a progress report that in something that's not necessarily a formal application.
If I may.
I get.
If I just
Sorry, Ray,
say
go ahead.
something here first of all, I think we did give them some comment at the last time they were here that we would not change the waiver, not waiver the business end of it.
Mhm.
But I think I'm not against them coming before us. In fact, I think it's a good idea. I just think it should be with a general idea, no specific plans and so forth. I have no problem with that. In fact, I think that is the way to go. But at the same time, I think there should be some notification to the public that if they want to tune in and listen to what is being proposed, that they should be able to do so.
Okay.
I agree. I mean, they already came before us once to kind of test the waters. And I mean, I thought even that was somewhat questionable because I don't think there's actually like I'm sorry, I'm trying to think of not a legislative or a law thing, but like a policy or procedure that they came before us and, it was an informal meeting, as you said. But to do that again, especially if they try to come before us with plans, I feel like that's just trying to skirt like the public eye. It doesn't sit well with me.
Well, why don't we do this? Why don't we kind of have it as a workshop and don't have them bring specifics, just have them bring kind of, their general plan. We don't need to get into site design and everything else, but just the general plan. And if there are people, we're going to advertise it on the agenda. If there's public comment, we should welcome it. And just with the caveat that they know that there is going to be a public hearing process and things may come up in the public hearing process that may sway us in a different direction. And that's what the public hearing process is for. So I think as long as we make it that clear, I think it's probably fine.
Yeah,
I'd be okay with that.
Yeah, and we'll be taking minutes of said meeting, and the meeting will be available on YouTube.
Sure. I mean, that's different from the public being there, though.
Sure. No, I completely agree. Is the way that I'm trying to define it is there's nothing in mass general law in the planning board world of specifying what this necessarily is. Typically, when someone submits an application, it's a public hearing and notification 300 feet to abutters. Whereas this is just kind of like, we just want to kind of give the board an idea.
They just want to talk it out.
Get some I wouldn't say informal because it's a public, realm meeting, but just to get an idea of what the board, I guess the flavor of the board and which way the wind is blowing in terms of not really a straw poll, but kind of trying to say, you guys okay with the changes that we've made?
Yeah, I don't love it. I'm not super comfortable with it, but I'm willing to do it. But I don't think that's something that should be encouraged going forwards. Process.
Sure, and the board can provide 0 comments and feel like their comments are more adequate for a public hearing standpoint as well. But I just wanted to let you know that request is out there, and if the board is okay with having a said workshop on the 17th.
Do we have anything else on the 17th?
The continuation of the project today, 210. So ironically, right next to the other site, so maybe we can tie those two together.
All right, any other board comments or questions before we take a motion to adjourn?
Don't wait
I
too
guess I'll
long.
move to adjourn.
Mr. McDonald, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Did we have a second on that?
Second,
Mr. Jemian?
yeah,
So Mr. Jemian,
yes.
Mr. Geller,
Yes.
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Ms. Ross?
Yes.
All right, good night, everyone.
Good night.
All right.
Have a good night, everyone. Enjoy your vacation, Pat.
Night, everyone.
Night,
Thank you.
everyone.
Mm.
Bye.